that matter most to Black and Brown communities. Hosted by Dr. Diamond and an incredible lineup of co-hosts. On the Couch brings you raw, insightful, and empowering discussions. From mental health and wellness to entrepreneurship, life insurance, healthcare, and everything in between. Our mission is simple: to educate, uplift, and create space for conversations that need to be heard. Whether you're here for practical advice, motivation, or just a dose of inspiration, you've come to the right place. So sit back, relax, and let's talk about the things that shape our lives, our futures, and our communities. This is On the Couch, where we keep it real, keep it relevant, and keep it moving. Let's get started.
Good morning, everyone. I know it's been a few weeks. We just needed a little bit of a break. We had a lot of stuff going on. Hopefully, everybody is doing well. We are looking forward to having a wonderful show today. Alicia Azahar, she is joining us today. She's an author, actress, model, poet, and a mother. And let me tell you something. This sister is extraordinary. I met her last year. We were at an event last year. We were both asked to participate in an event for domestic violence. And the event was extraordinary. But this year, we were invited back again. She did this poetry that was awesome, but she did it last year as well. And she was awesome then too. I cannot wait for you all to hear her story, hear how she went on her journey to become these wonderful things that we all dream about, especially like being an actress. You know, I'm curious about how did she get there as well. But before we bring her on, I have a former guest that came on with us. So he's decided to join us today too. I hope y'all remember Blue. He was extraordinary. He's one of the therapists that's out there that's helping our community as well. And always we got Mark waiting in the wings. And Toya, she'll actually join us later on. She has some double duty going on. But other than that, let's not wait any longer. Let's bring on Blue. Let's bring on Mark. How you guys doing today? So it's just me and the guys today. How's it going, guys?
Doing good.
All is well. All is well.
All is well, huh? Yes. So, you know, Blue and I was talking a little earlier before you came on, Mark, and I was just telling him about, you know, we were just talking about in general the climate. The thing that I started out with Blue was, how was your Thanksgiving? He said, no, my family and I don't celebrate Thanksgiving because we're Native American. Right. And I understand that because they did not do anything but slaughter, you know, those of us that have Native American roots, right? That's all they did. They slaughtered us. They slaughtered his family, I'm pretty sure, you know, as a descendant from Native Americans. And you know what's sad about this whole thing? History shows that the Native American was so welcoming to these folks. Mm-hmm. They were teaching them how to, you know, survive in a place they didn't even know how to survive. Right. Have you all read or heard the book of Michael Harriot, his Black AF History? If you haven't, please listen to the book. He talks about the Native American. You hear me? And I'm doing like this, big up to them, right? Because they were smart people, just like Africans. Smart people, knew how to navigate the land. There's a reason why God chose the people he chose and why we resemble the earth. Right. But to pay them back, look what did they do? They slaughtered them. Then they human trafficked Black people over here. Isn't that wonderful? You know, and then we decided to talk about the climate of today. Mm-hmm. And the climate of today mimics exactly what our folks have been going through since they arrived here in 1613, really earlier than that. See, people don't know that there's a history earlier than that. And when you go back to Michael Harriot's book, he is going to give you a wealth of history on how this all really began. And the Portuguese, I'm sorry, Portuguese, y'all are some terrible people because they did a lot of damage. And I'm sorry, those are, if you are, you know, a descendant of the Portuguese, please, please, these folks have a real problem. They really do. Especially with Black people. Anyone that looked different than them, they definitely had a serious issue. So I also shared with Blue that I'm thinking about writing about our traumas and comparing different movies such as Roots, 12 Years a Slave, and Harriet, and probably one other. And I'm just going to talk about what did that look like from our perspective of trauma by using different examples and how that affects us today. So that's kind of what I want to do. And that's the conversation that we were having in the background. But other than that, you know, I would like to hear from you guys, like what's new with you two, and then before we bring on our guest today.
Hey, Mark.
Everything's been quiet over here and everything. I was actually, as I told you on Toya show yesterday, I did go in. We did have our Thanksgiving celebration. We do play games, even though there are some family members that are Native as well, and they actually take part in the powwows. And actually, I think there's a big celebration that'll be coming up that'll be celebrating the Native culture here in the whole area around North Carolina and everything along those lines. And of course, I've got cousins that are very active in the powwow circuit and all along those lines. But I was actually watching yesterday a clip, speaking of the modern day environment and everything, and it was about Donald Trump and all along those lines, or the Orange Man as we like to call him. But it was actually involving Ice-T, and Ice-T was saying that this didn't really surprise him the way that it was coming down, because he's basically doing what gangsters do. He was saying that he had that gangster mentality, and I could agree with Ice-T that he's basically being like a true gangster and just doing what gangsters would do in the whole mafia kind of format and everything like that. So definitely that is something that he was bringing up, and he basically slammed him in that sense, because he's definitely no doubt a gangster and not a good gangster and all in that space. So he was definitely bringing that up, and definitely it was an interesting conversation. It was a YouTube clip. I think it was from a couple of weeks ago and everything like that. And then, of course, we're seeing that a lot of folks are suffering, including those that voted for him. I mean, we're seeing the breakup of MAGA. Marjorie Taylor Greene is leaving the fold and everything like that. And then there's a number of other folks out here. There might even be a mass exodus and everything, because they were not expecting, and I don't know why they weren't expecting it, that these things were just going to impact the Black and brown people, but SNAP and other things go to their kids, meaning white kids as well. So definitely, I don't know why they were thinking that it was going to be just impacting them. But as we all know, that's that stereotype. You know, the stereotype is the welfare queen being a Black sister, but the average welfare person is actually a white woman, probably a white blonde and everything like that. But folks don't want to hear that reality and everything along those lines. But that's the whole card facts and everything in that space. But definitely that's what I was thinking about. But yeah, it was a good time. Got to spend some time with my aunt, my two cousins. The oldest, as I told you recently, has been accepted to 4 universities. Still waiting to hear from some others, but he wants to go into the field of poli-sci and social justice. So he's going to have been accepted in NCCU, UNCG, Western Carolina, and Appalachian State. Still waiting to hear from a couple of other universities, but I'm just so proud of him that he wants to go into poli-sci, use that to go into law, and then from law go into becoming a social justice advocate.
Nice.
Indeed.
That's awesome. Blue, what about you? Anything new?
Well, no, Mark, you said a lot. I wish I had that much to say about what we were doing. Judith and I were expanding our private practices into a group practice, so that's 2026. So we're laying the seeds for that. Thinking about working on some new publications, some new works. Her book that she put out this year is doing really well, and the books I've done are doing well. But we're trying to find a fundamental book that's going to really make the difference, especially in our Black and brown communities. And we're just trying to, figure out what would that book be, what would that concept be. And I do believe that yours, Dr. Diamond, is definitely one that will make a difference. I try to work on a similar project, not with media, but with my family bloodline. But it seems like, they don't want to relive that pain. It's almost like if it's too far behind, they don't really want to look at it again. My father was hesitant. He was initially on board, but now hesitant. My mom, she did what she could, but didn't really follow the assignment appropriately. We're going to revisit that. But trauma is definitely something I want to, and that's what I'm focused on as well. That is one of my certifications. And it's just like, but what is something that our people can boom? This is what it is. I need to read this, but not only this, what can I do to make that change? And I'm just really trying to figure out, besides the group practice, what can I do to invest in the community to make the change needed for our people?
Yes. Amen to that. Like it is an investment that we are doing, having podcasts and getting the information out there. And we have to get truthful information out there. I listen to Roland Martin a lot too. And he talks a lot about truth. We have to be truthful. We have to talk about the hard conversations and have them. And maybe people don't want to go backwards, but they have to understand your history does affect you in the present. So you cannot ignore it, but you have to understand the history to move forward in a way where you're setting your goals differently. How would that look differently? And how can we as a community change that? So right now, even if we step back and say, hey, we want to do Black Wall Street, how are you going to do it? You got to go back to find out how they did it. So we may not have our brothers and sisters here with us, but I tell you what, their family members are still alive. Some of them are still alive where we can interact with them and find out, did you all continue the same methodology? How did you do it? Financial literacy, how did you do it? So those are the things that we should be looking at in that way, instead of just say, oh, not another slave movie or another book. But it's not that way. It's more of the education. And I tell you what, again, I have to big up the book Black AF History, because I'm telling you, that book is awesome. I enjoy it. I enjoy listening to it. So when I tell you, I can't say that enough, that book in itself inspired me also to say it's time, and I like the way he did it, how he came across and how he's educating us in a more fun way, but a way for you to absorb the information. And that's the most important part. So, Blue, I wish you well on that book, your up and coming one. Go ahead, Mark.
That book is going to come about, no doubt about that. But I was just wondering, because I also get frustrated about people that are thinking that Black Wall Street can't happen again and everything like that. As a matter of fact, this Tuesday, we'll be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Hayti Heritage Center, the cultural center that I work at, and everything like that. And it's actually going to be having a open house on this Tuesday as we get ready to prepare for the next 50 years. And we'll be showing some of the past things that had happened in the 50 years since 75 to 2025. But I do run across people that are like, that was the end, this is now. You can't really do that kind of Black business development and all along those lines. But some of those lessons learned you can carry on in the future and all along those lines. So definitely there were some lessons learned, and people forget how many Black Wall Streets there were. I mean, there are the ones that everybody is very familiar with, like Rosewood and Tulsa and definitely Durham and stuff along those lines. But people forget there were Black Wall Streets in California. There were Black Wall Streets in New York. People forget about Central Park being a Black Wall Street. And there were definitely Black Wall Streets in the Midwest and a number of other places as well. So people forget about that, and they got to learn that history and talk to those people, like you were saying, Dr. Diamond, that were part of that community, and see how they can help in that and all along those lines. The other thing I was going to say to Blue and everything is that sometimes those family gatherings, whether it's at a Thanksgiving gathering or just a family gathering for the sake of family, that can be where you can learn a lot of the history and everything. Because that's what I enjoy when I'm with my aunt, both my Aunt Julie and my Aunt Vaughn and everything like that, because Aunt Carolyn has passed on. But they would talk about some of the things that they remember, whether that was a dish that grandma fixed and how she fixed it, and all along those lines that might have inspired their own cooking and all in that space. But they were also remembering, family members and incidences that might have happened, who might have been rooting for what team, who might have been doing what along those lines. But it was just interesting hearing those family histories. And it's very important for us to try to remember their family history, because I know that even a couple of times I would ask and still ask mom some things, and she'd be like, I don't know, but you know who will know it? That's your Aunt Maud and your Aunt Julie. So they keep better records in some ways than mom does. Not saying that mom doesn't keep some better records in other aspects of her life, but so in terms of the family history, those are our go-to people, and all along those lines. And you know, we need to have other people as well. As a matter of fact, I need to tease my cousin's daughter, the oldest one, because when the uncle passed away not that long ago, maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, she said she was going to write down some of his stories and all along those lines. And I don't know where that project is as of now. I don't think that it's materialized, but it needs to materialize and all along those lines. So definitely that's something that I think families need to have, is those family documentations.
Yes, agreed. Okay, well, we're going to shift gears here, and we are going to welcome our guests onto the show. So I'm going to give a little bit of background of Alicia. So again, as I stated earlier, she is an author, actress, model, poet, wife, and mother whose life and work embody resilience, faith, and purpose. As the founder of Uninterrupted Thoughts, she uses her voice to inspire healing and self-expression through poetry and storytelling. Her writing has been featured in the Waco WordFest Anthology 2022 to 2024, and she has performed at events such as WFAA Channel 8 and the American Heart Association Go Red Live. Alicia also serves as a community partner at the Phoenix Academy, where she teaches social and emotional intervention classes, uses spoken word and journaling, empowering youth to find strength in their stories and purpose in their pain. Outside of her creative work, she enjoys reading, working out, writing, and spending time with her family. And without further ado, we are going to bring her on. So let me invite her on to the couch. Welcome.
Hello, good morning, or look, good afternoon, everyone.
Yes. Almost for us. It's still morning for us
That's
too.
true. That's true.
Yes. Okay. As I stated, she is in Texas. So therefore, you know that they're an hour behind us.
Right.
So we thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Again, thank you for coming on and saying, agreeing to it and saying, yes, I would love to be on your show. So I have been anticipating your visit with us on the couch.
Yes.
So again, we welcome you on the couch. So let's start out with you telling us more about yourself, and then we'll move forward from there.
Okay. As you stated, I am a wife, an author. I teach a social and emotional intervention class. I do poetry. That was my first love. Poetry is something that I started probably at the age of 9. I also do modeling. I work in production, so I do production. I'm a production assistant as well. So with commercials and different things like that. And overall, I'm just a creator. I love to create, whether it's writing, whether it's speaking, whether it's, doing poetry, whether it's acting, modeling, anything I can get my hands on creatively. I try to stay connected to that. Yes. Nice. And I'm a woman of faith. Yes. Second oldest out of 6, come from a little small country town in East Texas. So grew up raising pigs. My uncle had horses. And so I'm a country girl at heart as well.
Nice. That is awesome. So spoken word. So you say your first love was poetry.
Yes.
How did you, because a poet is, again, another creative art. And I think a lot of people don't understand that type of art. So can you explain to us how and what attracted you to this form of art?
So what attracted me, to be honest, when I was 8 years old, I found my mother dead. And that was a very hard thing for me to cope with. At the time, my older sister and I were living in New Mexico with our mother. She was a single mother raising us until she passed away. We had to go, after her death, we moved in with my father and his family and my ex-stepmom in Harleton, Texas. And I had a hard time coping with her death. So my dad took me to get some help. I went and got counseling, and the counselor told me, she said, however you feel, whether you're happy, sad, mad, however you feel, she said, write it down. Because I had a hard time expressing myself. I would always withdraw or shut down, or I would also have angry outbursts. So she told me, she said, write it down, write your feelings down. And so I found through words, it started to heal me somewhat. I felt better after I wrote. And then too, my dad and his ex-wife, they used to have, those old nursery rhyme books and stuff. I used to love just reading them. Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, different things like that, Langston Hughes. So I got into just reading different poetry books and just fell in love with words and how things rhyme, and not necessarily either how they rhyme, but just how you can take an idea or a thought and construct it in a way to provoke a thought or a feeling for someone else. And so that's how I got into writing poetry.
Nice.
Just out of curiosity, I was wondering, because like I said, I work at a cultural arts center here in Durham that has a very active poetry scene, and all along those lines, I'm actually very involved in the Southern Fried Circuit and all along those lines in terms of spoken word in that sense. So Dasan is a good friend of mine and all along those lines. But I was just wondering if you had ever participated in that kind of spoken word poetry, because I know that can be very active in Texas and Florida. And I know that there's an active Texas team that actually does quite well, quite often, and everything like that. So I just wondered if you had participated in any of the slam poetry, or if you just did the more standard readings where it's kind of like you and an audience maybe at a library, or whether you have participated in slam poetry.
Yes, I do slam poetry. I've also won competitions here in Dallas. I do open mics and competitions as well. So yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, and I know that Dallas has a very good slam poetry team. I think that's
it does
national championship a couple of times and all along those lines. So.
Yes, I haven't won nationals. I ain't on that level, but I've won locally. and I know quite a few national artists that are really phenomenal. Like they're really good. So yes, sir.
Yeah, that's definitely a part of that poetry circuit and all along those lines. But one of the things I love about the poetry circuit, and I'd love to hear your thoughts around that, is that a lot of the poets that I know use it as a form of healing. I know that Millie, who was one of the poets, does that. There are a number of other poets that are very bare in the sense of they reveal their soul and they let folks know what's going on, whether it's pain or whether it is other things. I've heard some very deep poetry about abuse. I've heard some deep poetry about kind of the racial abuse as well, and other kind of abuse, whether it was sexual or whatever, that's been done by the poets. I was just wondering, how much have you seen poetry and other art form used as a way to help in the healing process?
I see it all the time, to be honest. That for me is therapy. I've written poems about my sexual abuse. I've written about physical abuse. I've written about love and Christianity and just different things like that. It's definitely an outlet for a lot of people that I see. To me, some of the most creative and best writers come from a place of hurt or pain. That's where, for me, I've accessed a lot of some of my best poetry. It's just, tapping back into that hurt or just reflecting on things that I've been through and just expressing that through words.
Yes. So I hate to put you on the spot here, which I know you're not going to be on the spot, but if you can give us one poem right now, and then as we go along. So I would like for them to hear this as we go along through your interview. So do you have a poem that you can share with us?
Yes, I have a poem. This one is called All I Can Say. I wrote this. This is just about my mother and her passing and stuff, and just how I felt. So it's called All I Can Say. What can I say that hasn't already been said, Mama? From the day that my heart was ripped out of my chest from your death, that moment that you took your last breath, you didn't even have a chance to say goodbye. And for that, I used to be angry at God and wondering why. But he knew you had to go in the manner that you did, although my sister and I were just kids. It hurt like getting stung by a honeybee. Wait, no, a wasp. Because when a honeybee stings you, their lives are lost. But a wasp can keep stinging and stinging and stinging and stinging you and come back again like it wasn't even through. And that's exactly how I felt that day, losing you, a moment of time snatched away, some sinister video being replayed, making me watch it, holding me hostage, demanding a ransom for my sorrow, me praying to God for tomorrow, begging time to let me borrow just another minute so I could hold you one last time. A second for you to say what was on your mind. An hour of the day before you died to rewind. Now, what would you have said to my sister and I? That you didn't know that you were going to die? That if you did know, that you would have tried to keep death from sneaking in through the back door, you would have stopped it in its tracks and slammed it on the floor and told it that you were standing another day just to hold us once more? Knowing you, Mama, you would have fought like crazy just to spend another hour with your babies. And sometimes I feel like death robbed us from that moment. How much of a coward it is to own it. Now, would death be scared if I came for it too? Would it run and hide like some people do? Only to be snatched up like a hawk does its prey, laughing because it knows it can't get away. Your number was pulled and that day was your day, but oh, how I wish you could have stayed. But I love you, Mama. And that's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. Very powerful, your words.
That was very powerful and everything. As you were doing that poem, I was just wondering, and this is actually something I think Dr. Diamond would agree is not dealt with enough, but the poem actually addresses it, and it actually had me thinking briefly about a piece of artwork that my dad did a long time ago. It's called Thoughts and Prayers and everything like that. But it was about how when there is disasters in life, whether that's a natural disaster or whatever, and my dad is not the most deeply religious person, but he feels that we sometimes go automatically to thoughts and prayers and don't really go to enough actual concern and helping the people that need the help and everything like that, which is why he put the words thoughts and prayers in like the pull down fire thing, because sometimes it sounds like they are idle words and they're not words that have deep meaning. I've seen the same thing when people have gone through grief, because sometimes you need somebody there to hold you, and you need somebody there to take care of you, and you need somebody actually there that's got your back, and particularly with a loss like that. I mean, I have both of my parents still with me, my mom and my dad, but I do have friends that have gone through that loss and everything. So I was just wondering how much of it was that in that time, and I know that was a time back when you were a youngster and everything, was it hard for you to hear people that were trying to comfort you, or did you get the comfort that you felt that you needed? Because I know sometimes people are pulling in because they don't know how to handle the comfort that their people are trying to give them. But I also know that sometimes that is something that is desperately needed. So I just wanted your take on that.
I feel like at 8 years old, it was hard to, I would say, receive comfort, just knowing that my mother was my everything. Like, you know, I remember how I remembered her passing. And, you know, I had wrote a poem about walking into her room, finding her there. And it wasn't until years later, my older sister told me, she said, no, she said, you actually woke up, because my mother used to let me sleep in her room. You know, I love being next to her and stuff. And so she would let me, you know, sleep in the room with her sometimes. And she said that I actually had woke up and found her dead next to me and came out the room and got her. But I guess, I don't know, sometimes when we go through trauma, sometimes our minds, you know, constructs the situation a different way, maybe to protect me. I don't know, but my sister said, no, you were in the room with her. But I remember being so angry because she left me, you know, and I just didn't understand why. I didn't understand how could she be taken from me, someone so precious that I love so much. And, you know, and I know my sister, I can't speak for her, but I know she loved my mother just as much, you know, as I did. But to me, no words really could comfort you. Especially at that time for me, it was just a hurt that I had held on to for years and years. And I still grieve her even now, but I grieve in a different way. I try to celebrate her life through my art. speaking to students. If it wasn't for her death, I wouldn't have this purpose, I feel, as far as speaking to students and helping them to open up and talk about the hard things. So, yeah.
That makes sense. If I could just add a follow-up question really quickly, because I noticed that sometimes people, and Dr. Diamond, I'm probably going to step on some toes here and all along those lines, but sometimes people are got that whole question, because a lot of times we know that there is a faith community and a God community and all along those lines, but sometimes when these things happen, people are sometimes doing that why me, why now kind of attitude and can't really cope with it, because there's that whole notion, even when there's a natural disaster, of if you are a good God, why are you letting these disasters happen and everything like that? I'm sure there's even people that are wondering that about the political situation that we're in and all along those lines. But I just wanted your take on that, even as a youngster. I know that that was many years ago when you were a child and everything. I do know that that's something that people think about, is that, you know, they have a belief in God, definitely a belief in different ways to get to God, whether that's through Muhammad if they're into Islam, or whether that's through Jesus Christ if they're Christians, and all along those lines. But they may have different routes to get there. But a lot of times people are always trying to figure out why is God letting the disasters happen if he's supposed to be such a controlling and all in control God. And I was just wondering, as a kid, is that something that you were going through, where you were going like, why are you taking her from me at such a young age?
Oh, yes. I had many questions like that. Like, why God? Why did it have to be her? Why did you take my mother? I didn't understand it. I just knew that just the night before, she was fine. She was healthy. I mean, she did have epilepsy and stuff. There were times my sister and I would come in the house from playing outside and see her passed out on the floor, her nose bleeding because she fell and hit her face or something, because she used to have those grand mal seizures. But and that's another reason I believe too, I was so protective and loved my mama so hard, because my sister and I, at such a young age, we had to help care for her. We would put her head on a pillow and ask her name, and we'd have to question her, like, what's your date of birth, do you know who we are, things like that. But I definitely questioned God and was angry for years, because as a child, I just, you don't understand. I know as some adults can't even understand someone dying that they love, but as a child, it was like, why, why was she taken from me? Why was she taken from us? So.
Yeah, I can relate to you about that. You don't know how to grieve. No one is ever going to prepare a child for grieving. So I know what that feeling feels like when you lose your mom. And I understand, Alicia, your anger, because I was there too, that you go like a long period of anger. I can't speak for you, but I know for myself, it lasts a long time, all the way until my late teens, like 19, and then like you, I had to figure out, how to use the death as motivation. And that's what I did as well. So I really relate to you 100% about that. So I do want to ask you a question about resiliency, right? So tell me, what role does has resiliency played in, your arts and you becoming an author and a poet?
I believe that resilience played a deep role, because with resilience, you face many letdowns and failures. You hear a lot of no's, and that's something that you have to navigate through. I haven't always been in the position that I am today to be able to have these different opportunities to act, to model, to speak, at the school and work with students. I've been told a lot of times no, and that made me more resilient, because I had to learn to pick myself up and even sometimes work harder, okay, well, I didn't get that. What was it that, made them say no? Or what could I have done better, right? What can I do to better myself, to put myself in a position where people say yes, and how I can get the things that, that I want, or that are for me. So resilience definitely plays a lot. And also just navigating through my mother's death, it broke me, but it hurt me, but it didn't break me. Like, even with me growing up, I was sexually molested by 2 family members and stuff. And so just going through that, navigating through that resilience and saying that, hey, I'm not going to be a victim. I'm going to be a victor. I'm going to use my pain for a purpose. I don't want to sit here and make excuses. And, you know, a lot of times I feel like, you know, as humans, we have a choice. We have a choice to rise above the things that happen to us or to stay in that and then make excuses for why we can never, you know, be successful or overcome things in life. And so I didn't want to do that. I'm a fighter at the end of the day, and I'm competitive as well. I used to do sports. So all of that wrapped up in one that I got to keep moving, got to keep fighting every day. I have children, people relying on me. So.
As a community partner at the Phoenix Academy, you teach youth how to find strength in their stories and purpose in their pain. Could you share a specific transformative student moment where you realized that spoken word curriculum truly bridged a gap for them that traditional teaching methods could not?
Yes, I had one student. She was dealing with some mental health issues, and she told me, she said, going to speak to, you know, a counselor or whatever, it just wasn't helping her. But for some reason, you know, I had them, you know, I also do like different stories where I can take a nursery rhyme and flip it, and then we'll find a lesson in that, or, you know, different things. We'll pick subjects and stuff to talk about things, current events. But she told me, she said, I've had more help in your class than I ever had before. She said, because you actually sat and listened and just allowed me to express myself. And she said, she never was able to express herself in that way, a different way, as far as writing it down, because a lot of times I feel like we don't realize, sometimes it's hard to articulate what we're trying to say, right? But when you write it down, for some reason, it seems like you can download a lot more in writing than you can versus talking. And so for her, in particular, this student, she told me that that was just one of the most transformative moments in her life, where she was able to truly feel like she had gotten through, even with herself, and just feel better. And so that made me happy, because sometimes you never know, is this helping the students? You know, am I making a difference? But to hear that feedback, it made me know that what I'm doing is good and that I am helping.
Indeed. Thank you, Alicia.
You're welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Toya, how are you?
Hi, I'm actually volunteering right now, and I just wanted to pop in. I was listening to what you guys are speaking of, and I just wanted to add in, because this is a great topic, and I actually also lost a mother at a young age. So basically what you said was spot on. And sometimes we just have to continue to water one another, and I can see through your perseverance, you got through that. And I just know, as myself being a cycle breaker, I think that as a child, when you are raised by other people, you really don't understand what someone could be thinking. And I think that sometimes we forget that part. And as I said, in my shedding over the years as a cycle breaker, I had to make sure that I had to tune things out, because sometimes, you know, if folks can't see what you actually see, then there's an assumption. And sometimes I had to look and say, you know what, do you see the class as half full or half empty? And that'll let you know what a person thinks. Are they an optimistic person or they're pessimistic? And then sometimes after you decide on that, then you decide how to move forward. And it's all about how we respond and not react. So this is what we do on the couch. And thank you for letting me pop in. And I'm continuing to listen. And everyone have a blessed day.
You too. Thank you, Toya.
Hey, Alicia, just really quickly, because Toya just kind of alluded to it, and definitely I think Dr. Diamond did as well earlier. How did you manage to break that cycle? Because like I said, I know that I have been in situations that people might consider even abuse and all along those lines, whether it was a relationship or whatever, and all in that kind of way, because yes, man can be abused as well as usually mental or psychological or things along those lines. But I do know that part of what I went through was women that had been abused, because sometimes you can be a people pleaser as well, and all along those lines. And in those situations, they were putting their past situations into the new relationship, which was me, and everything along those lines. So I was wondering, because I think I heard you say that you are a wife now and everything like that, but how did you break that cycle and everything along those lines? Because I do know that sometimes people that have been through painful situations, they are transferring what had happened to them into their new relationship, whereas if they were the abused, then they become the abuser.
That's true. One way is through faith in God and prayer, and just actively talking about it too. Because a lot of times, you know, when we don't talk about the things that happen, when we just continue to hold them inside, you know, that will come out in other ways. It can be a situation where, you know, I could have been an abuser, you know, I could have done the things that were done to me, but I knew I didn't want that for my kids. I knew it was wrong. And I knew that I didn't want my children to suffer and go through what I went through. So I had to make a choice. I think that's what it really boils down to in breaking a cycle, is making the choice to not do it. You have to be strong and stand on that and know that, okay, if I know that what happened to me when I was younger is wrong, if I know that the things that people said to me and how they treated me was wrong, then I will not do that to my children. I cannot do that to my children because I know it's wrong. You have to be firm in your beliefs and your choice and stand on that no matter what. And so that's how I broke it. And then having a supportive spouse, my husband, being able to talk to him about the hard things, the things that happened to me, being able to really be vulnerable, because for a while I didn't like talking about these things, you know. I didn't like sharing the details. You know, a lot of people didn't even know I was molested when I was younger. A lot of people, you know, didn't know those things happened to me, that I was in a domestic violent relationship prior to my husband. A lot of people didn't know that. There's some who did, who were close, but being able to communicate that and talk about it and then make the choice to rise above that is how I broke the chain.
If I can ask a follow-up question, I know y'all get tired of me asking these and everything like that.
No, I like questions. Hey, that's how we get answers. Yeah.
Yeah. But the one question I had in that sense and everything is how often, and I just wanted your take on this, because I know that I'm still single even at the age of 63 and everything along those lines, but I know that there have been relationships that were bad for me that I knew were bad for me, but you know, sometimes you get intoxicated by the relationship and all along those lines. And I have had friends of mine that have told me after the fact, we knew that person wasn't for you, or we knew that that person was not a good person, or they were being abusive, or whatever the situation was and everything like that. And in the back of my mind, I was going like, well, if you knew it, why did you tell me, and everything like that? And then sometimes they might have the attitude, well, we knew that we told you, you wouldn't really listen, and everything like that. But I was just wondering your take on that, and whether there were times that you wish that people had possibly given you warning so that you could have gotten out of those situations before you stayed in them longer than you needed to.
Oh, I had warnings. I did. My dad warned me about my children's father, who was the one that abused me physically. My dad, immediately when he met him, he didn't like him. My dad said he reminds me of my younger self. He said there's something about him I just didn't like. But because I had resentment, because sometimes when we grow up and we see things like when our parents may or may not have done things, you know, I was very hard-headed. I was very, you can't tell me nothing because, you know, your life wasn't perfect. That, you know, I held on to some things with my dad. And instead of listening to him, I chose to be resentful and stay in a relationship that eventually turned out horrible. You know, it put me in danger and my children as well. And I do wish that I would have listened, but I can't go back and change the things that I did or that I didn't do. All I can do is say, you know what? I made the conscious decision to get out of that relationship when they were young, and I didn't go back. And all I can do is give them the life that they deserve. And that's what I'm doing now moving forward. My daughter was, I think, 6, and my son was barely 2 when I left their dad. So it was young enough to where, I mean, it was impactful somewhat, but it was also young enough to where they started learning what stability, a healthy relationship, you know, all those things that they didn't have before. They started seeing that with my now husband once I left that relationship.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I just heard that. I just wanted to chime in. I know sometimes we hear things, and thank you for sharing, because those are things that you don't tell a child. One thing that I told my son was that I'm not going to explain to you what occurred in my life. I said, because a child needs to stay in the child's place, and sometimes their lens does not need to see that. So as we got older, he didn't know everything. So then one day he says, well, Mom, I heard you crying one day. I didn't know what it was about. Now he's 24. I said, well, what happens is that sometimes we suffer in silence. And I did not want to taint what you knew about your father. I said, but time will tell. So now he's older, he understood. And I've never done anything negative because I've seen people, talk down to their mates. Then what happens is a child has to choose. So I had to choose, moving to different places. So there was sometimes what happens is you're quiet because you don't want to break that relationship. So what children do is they keep it and they say, you know what, I enjoy the time that I spend with this individual. However, that did not affect me. And so that right there was showing that it is a one-on-one relationship. So I just say to anyone listening to today that even though you're having an issue with your mate, the children are going to always go to their parent. That's something that is evident. And for me, working with children who are in diapers and, going to court to be an advocate. And one of the things that I saw over the years is that when it was an interracial couple, they would split the kids up. But when the Black families, they would want to do reunification. So that's something I don't understand. I just know that's what it was. But now we're in 2025. And now you see that they'll go and ask the family. And I know for a fact, when my grandmother passed, my sister and I were separated because we didn't have the same father. But then later on, when she got 18, she came to live with me. She left North Carolina and she said, I'm coming to live with my sister. And I knew she was going to come. I just had it in my soul that she was going to come. So then she came, we talked. Now that we had a loss in the family, we got to really spend some time this past 2 weeks to really talk about it. We have similar stories. And this just letting you know what the power of God, the spirit, and how I knew that even though we were not together, we would be reconnected. And now that we sat and we shared as cycle breakers, and I had to continue to water her so she don't go dark. Because sometimes we need someone when there's violence there, there's a lot. And as I'm not sure if April mentioned, but I just started a podcast called The Butterfly Room. And that is the healing portion where we want people to come and share. And I would love for you to be a guest because right now I am breaking all of that and shedding. In order for me to elevate and let people know who I am, I have to get rid of the old me.
Yes.
The one who went through the abuse. The one, if I told you my story, you would cry. But I just know that God is in me and through me. And when I know that I am doing the right thing, I feel like this gasp. I'm not sure if you feel that as well. When you know that you're shaking when you open your mouth. So I feel that, if I'm going to shed, is that an entity that's telling me not to shed so I can't heal? Mm-hmm. And then after I do it, I exhale.
You feel good.
So now we're shedding. And I just had to pop in to say that. And I missed the beginning, but I heard what I needed to hear because I'm being of service. But thank you, my sister, for sharing. Because now these are folks that need to hear, because there's times I was quiet and cry. And when you go to church and you just feel like my pastor says to me, you know what? You come to church because that's where you get fed at, right?
Amen.
You come to the hospital. And I'm not trying to plug it, but I get fed at 100 Durham Avenue, Metuchen, New Jersey. And that's where I'm at right now, being able to be a steward in what I love. So that's all that I'm saying. And I think that what I was missing, not to be long-winded, is that when I did not be a steward and heal someone else, that's when I was in turmoil because I knew what my heart was. But now you know exactly what I'm talking about. You met someone, a mate, who was able to shed into you. And then eventually you share those scars because the only thing that a woman wants to be is safe in a relationship. Amen. And what happens is you have these magicians, these men and women who present this persona, and then eventually you get to know them. But what we have to do, and one of the things I've been vetting now is, are you dating or are you courting? Because think about Bridgerton. They went to court. There was no sex. None of that. And I can say that with conviction in my house of God that I worship at. And when I looked at my relationships and did an inventory, when I dated, that didn't go good. But when I did a courting, the person we didn't go into that, if you know what I mean. That's when it was genuine, because eventually the magician will give you everything that you need. And then they will take it from you. And by then you're all in love and in marital bliss in some cases. So thank you, my sister.
Thank you as well for sharing that. And that's true. Like you said, with courting and dating, sex definitely can alter your mind and blind you to some things about someone. So yes.
In that same space and everything, I'm glad that Toya brought that up and everything. I'm just wondering your thoughts around children in relationships and everything like that. Because I was just thinking earlier today that I've got a younger brother that was engaged, and he's not engaged now, so he's actually broken up that engagement and everything. But I know that both me and other family members had become close because they had become like a blended family to their kids and everything along those lines. And I know that there have been relationships that I was in because they sometimes, even mom asked about an ex's one daughter in particular, even though she had two kids and everything along those lines. But one daughter was definitely more engaged with my family and everything. And they've not been in our household probably in 10, 15 years, but mom still asks about that person and everything like that. So I was just wondering how much of that conversation is also, and this is for everybody here, part of the conversation as well, because I'm just thinking about how a lot of times people are attached to children. And I know they say that a lot of times women aren't supposed to, or man, bring children into the relationship or until they feel that the relationship is going to be solid and everything like that. But life happens, and you never know when those breakups might happen and all along those lines. So I just wonder how much of that impact do you think it is for your kids when they lose somebody, not even by death, but sometimes by divorce or breakup?
For me personally, I think that's very important. I know when I left my children's father, I didn't bring another man around my kids. Like I dated, but my kids didn't know who I dated because I knew that none of the men that I dated was good enough to be around my kids. It wasn't until my husband, that was the first man outside their father that they've seen me with is my husband. And it was very important to me because I knew what I had been through. And I didn't want to subject my kids to seeing me with multiple men. And then, I have a daughter and a son, and I didn't want my daughter thinking, oh, that's, how I'm supposed to do it. And I didn't want my son thinking that was okay too. And so it was very important for me to not have random men around my kids until I felt like, the person that I ended up marrying was the right one. And thank God, not knocking people who do, because I know I've seen it happen, but for me personally I just couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Blue?
It has been said that art should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. Considering your work in both public performance and private healing, how do you manage to achieve both ends of that spectrum in a single body of work?
That's a good question. I think just by being truthful, just being real, just not holding back on anything that has happened to me, and being vulnerable with the audience, with myself. First, being truthful with myself, because a lot of times we lie to ourselves and we tell ourselves, oh, that didn't happen, or it didn't happen that way. We know it did. And we know we've made mistakes and things like that. But I think just being truthful with myself, and then being intentional about what I wanted to convey to people. Because if you're trying to truly help someone, you have to be honest. You have to be truthful. Like I heard you talk about Dr. Diamond being truthful, the truth. And, it's very important whether you want to accept that truth or not. It happened. So just being vulnerable, truthful, and being intentional about what you're trying to convey to the people.
Mm-hmm. That means a lot.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
I'm actually going to pivot, and I know this is going to be a drastic pivot and everything along those lines. We'll have a little bit of fun, Dr. Diamond, and everything.
All right.
Miss Alicia said that she was also a country girl and all along those lines, and grown up in the country and everything like that. And I had a conversation with my mom and aunt, and they were talking about some of the foods that they had when they were up and growing and everything. Because, if you live in the country, you sometimes got to have foods that might surprise other people and all along those lines. So they were talking about that venison, which we know is deer meat, and that is actually very common. But they were also saying that on that plate on Thanksgiving back in the country, you might find a squirrel and you might find some turtle as well. So I was just wondering, what were some of the unusual foods that you remember from growing up and everything along those lines? Because they did say that there were some times that they were growing up that they remember, because, like I said, the country. So you got to get what you got to survive on. And sometimes that can also be poke salad and some other interesting vegetables as well. So I was just wondering, what were some of the foods that you remember growing up there? I think you said it was in either Denton, Texas, or in that general area and everything like that. But what were some of those country foods that you remember growing up on?
Some of the country foods I remember growing up on, and I know some people may eat this, I had pig's feet, chitlins, turkey necks, oxtail, of course, your typical pork chops or whatever. We had pigs, we raised pigs, so we would butcher them and stuff like that. So any part of the pig you could eat, we ate it. But those are the main ones. I had uncles who did, hunt and kill squirrels and stuff like that. But what I mostly ate was a lot of pork, pigs, pig feet, chitlins, things like that. So, and oxtail and turkey necks. So
no possum?
I haven't had possum. I've had rabbit before. Rabbit's good. I have tried rabbit. I've had duck. I've had, of course, my uncles, they used to fish. I've had venison. I've had bison. What else? And then too, I love vegetables, rutabaga, turnip greens, collard greens, mustard greens, any kind of green you can think of. I'm going to tear it up. Potatoes, you can bake it, fry it, dip it in butter, whatever. I'll eat mashed potatoes, any kind of potato. I'm not picky with food. So if it tastes good, I'll eat it.
I hear you. I was actually watching a TikTok on earlier today and everything like that. And it was a young lady that was talking about Mr. Shark, which is a restaurant here in North Carolina that's a seafood restaurant. And she was talking about how good it was and all along those lines. But the interesting thing is that even though she was saying it was good, she brought her own seasoning. So she brought her own seasoning with her and everything like that. So I guess she did not feel that everybody was seasoning it correctly. So she brought her own seasoning with her and everything like that. So, Felipe, is there any places or any kinds of food that you remember that were out of the norm? Because like I said, I was just cracking up when I was there with my aunt, and they were talking about some of these dishes. They also talked about splitting the peas and some of the chores that they had to do on that farm as well. Because, if you grew up on a farm, you definitely had to do those chores as well. And I don't know about the rest of y'all, but the other things that was going on Thanksgiving, because you were talking about that earlier, in addition to the food and the football games, because everybody's going to be watching their sporting games and everything like that, is most families that I know also do some form of games. It might be Bid Whiz, it might be Scrabble, in our case, which is like a form of dominoes, and all along those lines. And those games can get quite competitive and everything. There might be jerseys on the line, and there might be other things. Whether that was some of the things that were going on in your Thanksgiving celebration, Miss Alicia.
This year we didn't have, it wasn't as competitive. We had quite a few family members missing due to work and different things like that. But previous years, our family, we do dominoes, we do Uno. We used to go outside and play volleyball, basketball. Very active family, very competitive. Scrabble is another one. What else? Phase 10. Love some Phase 10. And just different things like that. And spoons, we would play that. I'm trying to think what else. There's some other games that my mom and dad have introduced, or siblings have introduced me to, that I have never played before, but started playing through them. And so, yeah, but I love playing games because I'm super competitive. So
you said you're super competitive, and you mentioned that a couple of times, and I'm thinking, a lot of people are following super competitive women, whether it's in soccer or basketball. But as either one of your kids picked up on that competitiveness, because I know that I mentioned Deshaun's fiance, who is a poet in our area, is actually, her son is playing Division I believe it is, football and everything along those lines. So, and she was involved in sports. So the competitive gene was passed on from her to her son and everything like that. But I was wondering whether that competitive gene was passed on to you at all.
Well, my kids, they are competitive, but not with sports. To a certain extent, kind of, but not really, not like I was. They're more competitive, like in gaming, and when we play actual games and stuff. Yes, they're more competitive that way. But no, I want to be one of those sports mothers that's running down the field screaming and but it's okay though. It's okay. My son, we're trying to get him into, basketball. He wants to do track this year. So hopefully, he gets on the team and I can be in the stands screaming and, cheering him on. So.
Dr. Diamond, isn't that you? Because I've heard from
there's a question there for you.
What I heard from your husband, who is also one of my co-hosts on another show and everything.
Uh-huh.
I think both of y'all are very much into that whole competitive nature. I know there's a certain football team that he roots for that did not do well a couple of days ago.
You're right. You're absolutely right. We talked about that the other day. When I woke up yesterday, he said, "Oh boy, the Ravens, they went down. They started out good, went down real quickly. So I don't know what happened." But Alicia, there is a question there for you. And I may have a follow-up question behind that, but it says poetry or journaling. Which one offers you the truer form of release? I'm curious about that one too.
That's kind of hard because with journaling, I can just be talking about my day like, oh, this happened, such and such made me mad, or I'm sad about this. But with poetry, I would say poetry maybe, because it not only allows me to express that feeling, but it also kind of forces or pushes me to do it in a way that's more creative than journaling. Like, because with poetry, anybody can write something, right, and make it rhyme, but to really invoke an idea or share a story, you got to be intentional behind how you construct that. So I would say poetry, it makes me dive a little deeper. It may make me use words I probably don't use every day. I might come up with some stuff, or a little bit of metaphors, imagery, things like that. So I would say poetry.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So I have two questions, and there's going to be one that I'm going to show you, but one is about your uninterrupted thoughts, right? So what motivated you to create uninterrupted thoughts, and what impact do you hope it has on others?
So uninterrupted thoughts came to me years ago. I remember when I would sit down and write and journal and stuff. I feel like that was just the Holy Spirit giving me that idea. Because, there's times where as a mother, even as a parent, there's times where I couldn't even think, kids always wanting something. There's always, something that I had to do at home, or, work's always calling or whatever. I always felt like I never had a moment of an uninterrupted thought. I always felt like, there was always some kind of interfering. So that came to me. And what I hope that it would do, for the future, or just, I just hope for people to really understand that you have to take a moment and allow the distractions and all the noise to kind of subside. A lot of times we get caught off guard by things. We're distracted by social media. We're distracted by life. We're distracted by, our trauma. But sometimes we need a moment just to kind of just sit and think, and not necessarily on the things that have happened to us, but maybe just on what we want for ourselves. Where do we see ourselves, next year? What do we want for our lives? What do we want maybe for our family or our children? I just hope through my business or my organization, just to help people to really have a platform just to be able to express themselves in a way that they may not normally express themselves. You don't hear a lot of people saying, yeah, I wrote a poem today about people, about this or that. Most people just don't even journal. There's a lot of people now that are starting to get into it. But years ago, you never really heard too much about people journaling that much. That was I'm not going to say a stigma, but that was more of like I don't know, like, oh, you journal? I don't do that. Oh, you read? I don't do that. But it's like, that's very therapeutic. And now more people you're seeing are starting to do it. Even millionaires or very successful people have journals. And that's something that I started years ago, of course, through therapy, but it's something that has helped get me where I am today. So.
Okay, so you see the question on the screen.
Mhm.
Here it says, one piece of advice you would give your younger self on the verge of starting Uninterrupted Thoughts. So this kind of went with the previous question. So how would you answer this one?
How I would answer that one is, I would say start now. Don't wait till, you know, you get to your 30s to start it. Start now. Don't be afraid to put your ideas out there. Don't be afraid to share your thoughts and your feelings with people, because I didn't start sharing my poetry. Actually, my husband was the one that got me into doing open mics and stuff. He's the one that kind of put me on the spot. I remember we were going to vote locally, you know, for like the city council and all that, the states and stuff. And I remember there's this lady out there talking, and she was like trying to get us to vote for her particular party and stuff. And my husband, they were talking about like Juneteenth, like, oh, we're going to have this Juneteenth thing. And my husband said, oh yeah. He said, well, my wife does poetry. And I remember looking at him like, please shut up. Please do not do this to me. Because he's the only one besides, yes, a few people that have heard me. And he was like, my wife is a phenomenal poet. And they said, oh yeah, can you do something for us right now? And I remember the horror, how I felt. I was just like, I wasn't ready, but I did this poem called Youth Against Violence. And they invited me out for Juneteenth to perform for the city of Mansfield. And so I got started that way. And then for Valentine's Day, I remember he had took me, we were trying to find something new to do. And there was this open mic night he took me to and encouraged me to get up and share a poem called Love. So yeah, that was very nerve-wracking, but I got through it. So shout out to my husband for pushing me into uncomfortable situations. So,
and sometimes we need the other person behind us to push us forward. Like you, not poetry though. I didn't tell a lot of people that I have my doctorate degree, right? I never lead with it. I'm a very humble person. But my husband, you gotta be kidding me. He introduced me that way. Hello, yeah, this is, I'm like, oh my God.
I know that's right.
Be quiet. But he said, you worked so hard for this. What are you hiding it for? So, you know, when you just got to come into your own, I think you have to do that same thing to say, you know what, I'm good at this. You know, I worked hard for this. So I do need to expose it to others. So that's us having to step up and do that. So I get it.
Yes.
So Blue, I know you got something to show us and talk to us about too. So I'm gonna give Blue the floor for 1 second, Alicia. 1 second. Oh, journal. Okay.
I love that. Wellness journal.
Tell us about it.
I think he's muted.
Blue, we can't hear you.
This is the Modern Therapy Wellness Journal. It's a journal that is like a wellness journal. What I found is when I was meeting with my psychiatrist, I would easily tell him what was going on the last couple of days, or my therapist, what was last going on a couple of days, but it wasn't capturing each day or, you know, the tides of what I was going through. So I developed a wellness journey. My team developed a wellness journey that has a Richter scale regarding the mood, but also a daily prompt. And the daily prompts are based on the 7 or the multiple domains of our life. And as we work through it, you know, if I wrote every day and I, you know, just about what's going on, that's one journal. But I thought there was something missing in the journal space regarding prompts to address our inner dialogue and things that we didn't think to talk about or think to process that might be holding us back. And that's available on Amazon.
Nice. I love that.
Please send me the link so I can put it on the couch, please.
Yes.
It needs to be on the couch for sure and everything like that.
I love that.
Hey, I just had a quick question for you. I know that Toya is at a church function because she's mentioned it a couple of times, both on the Butterfly Room yesterday as well as on this show today and everything like that. And I know that a couple of weeks ago, my younger brother and only brother and everything did a food giveaway. It was actually in one of our communities and all along those lines. So the question I had for you is, there in Texas, what do you do that is your give back to the community and everything like that? I know that you do some stuff through your poetry and through your teaching and everything, but I didn't know if there was like any organizations. I know that my brother does it through his work as a mental health counselor and everything along those lines, because he does a lot of work with at-risk youth, but he also does it through his slingshot group. And anybody that knows the cars, that's actually what was it wasn't his car, but that was actually the avatar that you saw in the backdrop when I went off camera and everything like that. But it's the popular slingshot cars, and they have a whole group of folks. I think there's even a chapter down there in Texas. I know there's chapters in Virginia and North Carolina and everything like that, but they gave to the community and gave a lot of turkeys and vegetables that they got from the grocery store for Thanksgiving. But I just wondered, what was your community give back, much in the way that my brother's done and that Toya has done? Or
Yes. So part of my community give back is I am a volunteer at the library, the public library. So I'll go up there helping out with that. Sometimes they do like different drives where they'll go, people who can't physically go to the library, they have it to where we drive the books, deliver books to the people or whatever community. Also, they've had things where they do like book sales and stuff. I've been up there to help kind of, get that set up and things. My my parents have J-Star Ministries, which I've been a part of my whole life. And so what my father does is they do community, they give food, they do coat drives, they do what else, they just did a Veterans Day program that I was a part of. He had me come down and perform, and then I helped serve food to the community, veterans, wives of veterans. We had giveaways and different things, and then also like for the backpack drives and stuff, just donating money and stuff for that. And my father also does disaster relief, which I'm a part of, as far as like giving monetarily to help get donations and things to people who are Kentucky, Kansas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, all over. So part of the disaster relief through my family's ministry, J-Star. So
glad to hear that. And just real quickly, I'm going to say that this right here, if you can see the picture, is my grandmother and everything like that. She actually started the Black Library in Raleigh, North Carolina. So it was started 95 years ago or 90 years ago. They celebrated, and they just named a award after her, the Molly Houston Lee Award, that they will now be presenting regularly. But on November 9th, and she started that 90 years ago. So in 1935, just walking around the community, raising money and all along those lines. In our state capital, she decided that we needed a library in our community, and she started that library and then passed away in 82. But she's actually one of the mentors in my life, even though she's been gone for decades and all along those lines. But definitely that's a award that they just started this year to celebrate her legacy, even though like she's been gone for a while. But the library is now in its 90th year, so hopefully in another 10 years it'll celebrate that 100th year.
Yes, that's awesome. That is
very nice. That is great. That's really good. So I have questions around trauma, right? We earlier, I guess you heard us also talking about trauma and what I am going to embark on for myself as well, to write about trauma. So the question I have for you is, what advice would you give to someone struggling to find their voice after trauma?
Ooh, that's hard. But what advice I would give for someone who has experienced trauma after trauma is to find a trusted adult or person and talk to them about it. Don't be afraid to talk about what happened, because by you holding that in, I mean, it can either continue, right? The trauma can continue, or can affect you later in life, like it has affected so many other people. But I would advise them to get help or seek help now. And if whether that's in me, and if I can help in a way, and I'm able to, then I will. Or if it's someone else that may be closer to where they live, or depending on where they are, that's the best advice I can give them. But definitely someone you trust, because sometimes you can tell someone and they may be connected to the abuser, and then that may not turn out so well for the person being abused. So it has to be someone that you trust and can keep that, but also get you the help that you need.
Yes, yes. And I agree with that. Finding someone to trust is a huge factor. And if it happens to, you're not able to find that person, and now speaking from a professional lens too, you have to possibly, challenge yourself to step into the world of therapy, now that we are trying to embark on therapy, especially in our Black and Brown communities, all I can do is to continue to promote that. And I'm pretty sure Blue agrees with that as well. That we have to continue to promote. And just like what you're doing as well, teaching and embarking on, writing, and you're, getting that people to understand that it is okay to speak and use your voice, even when you're going through traumatic moments in your life, and how to let those things, purge off of you, because you can carry trauma most of your life. I talked about that earlier, how we share that, because carrying such a traumatic experience, right? You do feel so many different things, and you feel abandonment, the anger, the sadness, the depression. You go through all of these emotions, and you're going up and down in a roller coaster ride, but no one ever tells you or notice that those are symptoms of trauma. Those are symptoms. So, but no one is telling you that, because they don't know that to tell you that. But I like the fact that you're teaching. And it's the way that you're teaching, and the methodology of using your poetry to teach and hear the messages that's in your poem. So I really like the fact of how you're doing that. So with me getting ready to get you back out here again, I would love to hear at least, if you like, 2 poems come to mind that relates to our topic that we've been talking about today, which is you. But I would love to hear 2 other poems.
Okay. Look, gotta plug my book in real quick. This is Uninterrupted Thoughts. And I also, when Miss Toya was talking about the butterflies and metamorphosis, that's one of the reasons that I had my nephew. This is my silhouette, but he did the butterflies on here, because I look at myself as a butterfly who has transformed, who has went through metamorphosis, and I'm still transforming. But let's see. I'm trying to think, because I have quite a few. I guess I could do Love. That's one of the earlier poems I wrote. And then let's see what else I'll do. I'll start with Love. We'll start there. I never realized what it was like to love until I understood hate. I mean, you can't have one without the other, right? At least that's what they say. But then sometimes I love you, and other times I can't stand you. But it never should escalate to the point where your face is black and blue. You see, I never was able to comprehend how these two things work together, because I thought that when you said that you love someone, the love lasted forever. But I guess it's true. Love is only a 4-letter word until it transforms into action. To some, it means more, wrote on a Hallmark card, especially in big captions. Some use love as a weapon. It poisons you quicker than saying, I hate you. Some use love in exchange for sex, only later to degrade you. So then how can you be in love with someone if you've never experienced it firsthand? And people think they can obtain it with gifts and compliments on demand, but you see, love is more than a 4-letter word. It's more of a verb than a noun. And people, they search all over the world for love, but for some, it's nowhere to be found. You see so many people getting a divorce, cheating, or beating up their wives. Now, if you can't love yourself, then how you gonna make a deposit in somebody else's life? I mean, you hear people say that they fell in love, but really they just fail to love, because no one truly understands that definition except the one who created up above. I mean, the Bible says love is patient, it's kind, it doesn't envy, it doesn't boast, it's not proud. But it takes more than reading about it in a good book of quoting scriptures out loud. Love is about forgiving and doing what's right instead of wrong. Because you see, the first sign of love I ever heard about, he was mocked, beaten, and crucified to a cross all alone. So think before you tell someone you love them, or you may just have to pay a price. Because you see, to some, love is an addiction. If you play with their heart, they may take your life. Now, I don't know about you, but that's definitely not the type of love I crave. So don't get caught in society's definition of love, or you'll soon become enslaved. Thank you.
Mm.
Beautiful, beautiful,
Thank
beautiful.
you.
And I know I got to pop in here and there. And basically a great rendition of what needs to be said in reference to love. And I think that's really what it is. I always say that hurt people hurt people. Mm-hmm. So that means that they may not know how to love. Maybe that the love that they received wasn't what they expected. So one of the things that I say to folks is unrealistic expectations. That's something that we do. We give people a vision of what we see. We put them on a pedestal, but guess what? They have to earn it. And as a survivor, they got to earn it. And there are stages, and that's something that we have to do. We have to water these little ones because they see a lot in the home. And I just know as a cycle breaker, you see a lot, so you're unsure of that. And the only thing my dad said, he's a lover for sure. And he said to me, you know what? You have to be everything that a man needs. So that's what I did, but it was for the wrong person, right? So then what happens is you're like, oh, am I a failure? Did I not do what the right thing was? Because my dad, basically, you know how they say the 80-20? So we used to have talks. However, his mind frame was the old school. And one of the things that my stepmother had said to me one day, she said, you know, when your dad was growing up, he didn't pay right. And my grandfather would come there and supplement because it was a family business, contractors. So when I said, so my dad didn't have it right back then. But his father made sure that the wife had what he felt. So he kept the money. So now just having these little conversations let me know what is missing right now. The men of the South are no longer existent. What's happening now is, it's funny, I was talking to my niece. She said, Auntie, I was on ChatGPT. So I'm just going to put that little a seed out there. The younger generation is looking at Magneta, ChatGPT, when they should be speaking to a big mama, because there's no big mamas there. So we have work to do so that they know what this is. And by you putting your works out there, we need to start with the younger kids, the adolescents, because what's happening is they're seeing a lot. And I don't know if you guys have watched the Megan Thee Stallion story. I watched that over the holidays. And that's all I'm going to say, because what we see is what we see. However, that is only acting.
That's true. I definitely do agree. I feel like we all wear masks a lot of times, you know. People ask, oh, are you okay? I'm fine. But a lot of times we're not, you know. A lot of times we could have just went through, you know, a breakup or, you know, financial struggle. Sometimes we could have gotten a divorce or whatever, been abused. And a lot of times we'll pretend to be okay because we don't want people knowing that we're not okay. And as the older I get, I've learned that it is okay to not be okay, or to let people know that you're not okay.
Yes, and that's really what it is, because we provide services. And sometimes by you just getting up out the bed, so what I do is I put my blinders on because I got through that. And my girlfriend would tell me at MSN, she said, Toya, psychiatric, no, she teaches. She said, why you keep going down that rabbit hole? I had to take a break on that. Don't go down the rabbit hole. So she saw something. She said, I had to stop going down. Because she said, when I went down the rabbit hole, I digressed. She said, look forward. And if it's not a good day and it's okay not to be okay, you do something. You give back. And then once you get back and you smile, then that makes your day better. So I always say, if you're having a bad day, I told my sister as I help you do this grief process, take it moment by moment, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day. And the only thing you do is you say, you know what? We got through these 2 weeks.
That's true.
Because I don't know how we did, but we did.
Yeah.
So I'm just sharing a little bit because I'm on the brink of that. And that's it. Moment by moment.
Yeah, moment by moment.
I agree.
Yes, Lord.
You talking about the mask and everything, Alicia. I was actually just thinking about a incident that happened earlier this morning and everything along those lines. I called a good friend of mine, and we've been buddies for a while. He actually has done a lot in the entertainment world in terms of one of the longest running open mics and a number of other things. But I called him because I had seen the birthday notice, those birthday notices come on Facebook and everything like that. But, versus putting the mask on, he was actually very vulnerable and everything like that. Because when I called him, he was actually at the hospital because apparently his lady love and everything had taken him to the hospital, I think a day or two ago, because he was having heart murmurs. But he could have definitely done that whole mask thing and been like, I'm all right, and just run me off the phone and everything.
Right.
Telling me what was going on and also praising his lady for helping him in that situation and all along those lines, because it's a younger lady. I think there's like that May, December kind of situation that is going on, but he could have been like, totally in denial or in hiding, but he was being very honest about what was going on. And I appreciate it. He even said that he thinks that part of the rumor, the part of what may be causing the health problems, because we forget about how one part of our body can impact the other. So he's thinking that there may be a tooth incident or tooth infection that might be causing problems with the heart, because we forget that all of the body is connected. So we don't.
That's true.
Those two are
that can definitely impact other parts of the body as well.
Yeah. So go ahead, Alicia.
No, I was just agreeing. That's true. And I did have another poem, but
yes, I'm ready. We ready. We's ready.
This was called A Woman. I wrote this one just because growing up, I used to hear men and especially young guys talk about what a woman is and what makes you a woman. And, so I just wrote this one. So y'all bear with me. I used to wonder when my body was going to start developing into a woman. Now, I know that sounds confusing, you see, but I was told before that if you have those childbearing hips, y'all know the kind that makes a man want to grip and to discover the secret between them, then you're a woman. Because there ain't no way that a woman has a flat chest or anything less than C-cup breasts, right? A woman doesn't just look like a woman, but she sounds like a woman. Even when she walks by, you smell the scent of a woman. It's hard to define a woman because there are so many components. How we can just walk into a room and downright own it. From the way our breasts hang naturally like teardrops to the way those hips sway will make any man stop. Women rule the world just from a look, with our voice soft but yet powerful, have all the men shook. We're one of the most powerful weapons in this world. We were born nuclear weapons ever since little girls. They call us mystical creatures because they ain't seen nothing like us. Got to have a dictionary to figure out which word to describe us. In a room full of men, we are the topic of their discussion. Walk into a club and got all of them tussling because women were, is, am, and are against the midnight sky. We are the stars, illuminating, fascinating, elevating, captivating. God, I'm waiting for us to come all the way down to their level. They dig us so hard, we got to throw them a shovel. I am a woman and I will always be. I came from a woman and one came from me because we are life creating, others imitating, but there is no debating that a woman is one of the most amazing creatures that God has ever made. A sight so beautiful that your eyes have ever laid. A woman, your mother, your daughter, your aunt, your sister, your grandma, your friend. So don't you dare diss her because a woman is someone that you came from, you see? And a woman is someone that a man could never be. Thank you.
Wow. Very powerful. I got a question, and it's, one of the other topics you said you were going to get to, Dr. Diamond. I don't know if we got another 20 or 30 minutes or how long you're going to go on this particular episode and everything. I know I've got to get to a meeting shortly and everything like that.
Me too.
Really quickly, and all along those lines and everything. I was wondering, we talked about the power of the woman in that particular poem and everything, and I'm just going to tackle another hot topic and everything along those lines. But I think a lot of people in leadership don't understand the power of women and all in that space. And I know that women have played a strong role in my life. I've actually mentioned some, whether it's my grandmother or my own mother who I spent time with on Thanksgiving, or whether it's my aunts and one that is passed and others that are still around, and even women that have been in my life. But we know that women have also been getting a bad rap, and part of that is because of what's going on with women and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Fields that are unfortunately part of that, and all along those lines, because I know that there is abuse in the modeling field. There is still the acting couch, unfortunately, in the acting field and everything like that. And of course, we all know that everybody's waiting to see when the pedophile in chief will go ahead and release his Epstein files and everything along those lines. But I was just wondering your take on some of these important issues where women are not being respected enough and need to be getting some due diligence and everything like that.
That's been a long time coming, to be honest. That's been something that's been going on for a while, as far as women not being respected. I mean, from just me speaking personally, from the jobs I've been on, whether it was being sexually harassed by a manager or seeing someone else being sexually harassed, or even just in acting, being asked to do certain things. I had a producer before ask me, would I be okay with nudity? And I was like, no, I'm not okay with that. You can find someone else to do it, because I'm not going to compromise who I am or my morals or my integrity just for $1, you know? And so I just feel like a lot of times as women, we do go through things, and sometimes with society, a lot of times why women stay silent is because people victim blame. They don't necessarily believe the woman, or sometimes they may, but when you have a man or someone that's in power, who has money, who has a powerful position, a lot of times people don't want to go against that. And so instead of standing for the woman or with the woman, they a lot of times victim blame. Oh, well, what did you do? What did you wear? What did you say? You know, how were you whenever this conversation took place? Well, why didn't you just leave? You know, a lot of that stuff, instead of looking at it as, you know, that situation shouldn't have happened at all. And so I feel like a lot of women, when you hear these stories, these Me Too's, or women who come out now talking about the things that have happened to them, you know, it's very heartbreaking to hear. But also, as a woman who has experienced some of this stuff, you know, it's very easy to believe that those things have happened. And one thing we need to start doing is holding the predators accountable. We have to, because that's the only way it's going to stop, is if we start holding every person accountable for their actions against women.
Yes. No, I'm about ready to step on another toe again, Dr. Diamond, but in terms of holding the predators in account and everything like that, don't you feel, Alicia, that we sometimes have to do it in our institutions as well? Because I know that there are organizations, there are churches, there are a number of other things where people know that there is abuse taking place and all along those lines, but sometimes they're not even willing to have those conversations. I know in this show before, we talked to Dr. Diamond about people that were in abusive situations, and matter of fact, I can think of one right now, but they're in a better situation as best as I can tell and everything like that. But when they were in the bad situation, the church was actually given that whole, it's in, what is it? The vow, in sickness and health, in hard times and good times and everything like that. And they'll use that as an excuse for not encouraging people to get divorced when they need to be getting divorced, and all along those lines. So I just wanted your take on that. Do we need to be holding our institutions accountable, whether they are the housing the predators or whether they are encouraging the predators?
For me personally, yes. I think, and you hear it in churches too, you know, the pastor that molested, you know, this boy, or, you know, the girl, or even the pastor sleeping with, you know, Miss Jones. I even wrote a poem called Christian, because, you know, just based on some of the stuff you hear in church, you know. But yeah, they definitely need to be held accountable, because if not, then it's going to continue going on like it has been. No one wants to. And I feel like this, a lot of times people don't like to hold other people accountable too, sometimes in certain circumstances, is because they may have been a part of the problem or doing it themselves. A lot of times people, you know, when you do dirt a lot of times they're connected, and if I out you or if I say something, then I'm going to get the light shed on me. And so I don't want people to know what I've been doing. So you have that too in churches and institutions.
Yeah, you definitely got that. If you get a chance, Alicia, there's I'm also a big fan of blues music. Used to do a blues show for years and still work with several festivals, including Late Blues. There is a group called MSG, the Acoustic Blues Trio. I think they're out of Virginia and still playing, but they had a song some 10 years ago and everything, but it was called Mean Church People. And that's literally what the song was. It's kind of like your poem, because it was talking about how people will sing those things or be praising those kind of things, but then doing the dirt themselves and everything. So if you ever get a chance, you can find it online. You can find it on YouTube and everything. Check out Mean Church People. It's I think that and your poem will probably match it very handy.
I will. Mean Church People. I'm gonna write it down.
That's a real good one. I'm sorry to laugh at that, but yeah, Mean Church People, because a lot of them are very mean. Because it is true. It is very true.
Wait.
I have to get into that one. Yes. And I'm just going to let you know, some years ago, I left my forever church. I came back. There were some people who were not so nice, but they're no longer here anymore. There was a comment, but what I'm going to tell people when that happens, they tell us you see something, say something, but most people of color, they don't want to say it. But sometimes you need an outward exit interview, for quality assurance, use an exit interview. So only thing, if anybody's listening, if you want to know why your parishioners left, or anything like that, you put out a Survey Monkey. Let us know so we can know better, we could do better. Because no one that's mean and nasty should do that. But one of the things that I know that conviction. What you got to understand is when I'm out and about, I put my hand here, right? So if I feel anything that's going on, then possibly maybe the room is messed up. Somebody had a bad day. But just know that we're all sinners, as my pastor says. That's why we come to the hospital every Sunday. So to make sure that. So when you go to a house of worship, that's where you go to get fed. And I'm literally in the house of worship. So don't do that. They are not who your higher power is. So don't run from them, because they're not your higher power. It's someone that's conducting it. And as I know, there are some people who in the tabloids, there may be some scandal, as we know. And I heard what you said in reference to the church folks and the people. Those folks are coming because they're predators. I worked at an agency at one point. There were predators there. And all I know is that I heard the folks, and then eventually I had to leave the place because I did not like that. It was messing up my delivery because I'm hearing it. Why are you telling me certain things or making a comment of that? Sometimes it could be negative news, or because that person didn't get something once. If you're working with parolees and probationers, maybe that was slander on the person because they didn't get what they want. And then on the other side, I've heard someone, I'm just going to just share this. There was someone who was using drugs, was a sex offender. So he explained to me, I was dating my sister's friend. Okay, so I'm listening. As you know, in New Jersey, there's a statute of limitation, 5 years. So what happened, he was getting exploited by someone. Okay, so you just never know. So sometimes you just got to sit and listen and make sure that you understand. But those people could be mean, but they may have an agenda that we don't know about. So for me, listening to that, and I'm like, oh, so I could not work for this community program because I grew up in the community. So then I left and went north to work and provide services, running a drug program with 3 levels. Outpatient, IOP, and partial. But I had to get out of my comfort zone. And when I left there, that's when things changed. So just be mindful. When you say angry people, there's always 2 sides in what our higher power sees. I don't take that for truth anymore. When you're young, you kind of listen to that. So if there are mean church people out there, don't be mean, because you're turning people away from the church. Okay, come on now. If you're there to get fed, don't do that. If you're upset, there's 2 people talking. Did the higher power do something to you? Just something to think about.
That's true too.
Okay, well, you know what? It is getting closer to the end of the show. Normally we go about 2 hours, but I think we all got a few things to do today. I do shortly. But you know what? I would love to bring you back on to the show at some point. So I will connect with you to see your availability again, because I'm pretty sure we have some other stuff to talk about with you. But I appreciate you, definitely sharing at least 3 of your poems,
Thank you.
Today. And that was awesome. Again, your poetry is wonderful.
I'm going to
make sure that your book is also being advertised on the Couch website. Blue, yours as well. I'm going to make sure those links are up there. So traditionally what we do here on the Couch as we welcome you on, and before we depart, I would love for you to share some parting words with our listeners today. And it doesn't matter what you want to talk about. You can be related to, your interview today, but what will be your departing words for our listeners?
My departing words for the listeners is, for those of you who have been through a traumatic situation, or who are going through a traumatic situation right now, find someone you trust, use your voice to speak up, and just know that your story can be the key to someone's healing. You never know, someone may need to hear from you, hear your story, hear your words, and that may inspire them to start therapy, find healing. And also, don't allow situations in life. You are not your circumstances. You can rise above it all. Keep God first. Pray, and just know that there's always someone watching you. But most importantly, you have to continue to fight every day. Every day is a battle, but also you have the choice whether to fight, to live to see another day, or to not. So keep rising, keep pushing.
Thank you. I think Mark is in the outskirts over here. He might come back in. Blue, I'm gonna pop over to you. Blue, what is your departing words for today?
I have a couple. One, right to heal, right to process, right to get things out. I tell people all the time, when you journal, you don't have to worry about filling up the whole page. I remember when I first started journaling, I always thought I had to fill up this page. It could be one word. It could be a series of words. I tell people sometimes there's no words at all. The only things written on the paper are my tears, and that's fine enough as it is. Additionally, if you are seeking help outside of your own support circle or your own resources, like a therapist or whatever, you don't have to, that therapist that you selected initially doesn't have to be the one you stick with. You have the options to shop around. I know we call it church shopping. It's not recommended, but honestly, you got to find a person that fits you, that's going to feed you. Oftentimes I find myself in therapy with a person way too long, and they weren't the person that was going to help me through that chapter of my life. So just note that that's what, the consultations are for. But even past the consultations, you might have said, oh, that might have been a person I agreed to work with based on that phone consultation. But then you find that, it's not really a good fit for me. You have the option to find another therapist. Please don't let that be the end all if that doesn't work out.
Amen.
Agreed. Yes. Toya, if you're listening, do you have any parting words?
Thank you so much, everyone, for allowing me to join you guys today. I'm not on camera because I'm actually working, but I love the topic today. I love the poetry. The poetry basically embodied the healing process, but you put it into words so that you can share what you went through. I do that from time to time. So anybody that's listening, write it down, because you never know. Those lines can turn into a stanza. Next thing you know, you have a piece. That's it. And later on, you can go back and look at it and you can see your progress. I always say that improvement equals perfection. Perfection cannot be obtained. However, I can strive for it. So today you heard a lot of information, and you're going to take it and you're going to know that you are not alone, and know that there are folks on this call that you can email, send a message, and you can speak to someone of color. Sometimes we feel that we don't want to reach out, but get it while it's hot. If it's on your mind, think about it, do it, execute it. I know Dr. Diamond always talks about the little gremlin on our shoulder, and sometimes we have to differentiate with our voice. Our voice needs to be heard. You take your time, you take a deep breath in, put your hand on your chest, and make sure that I am responding and not reacting. And that's all I have for today. Everyone have a blessed day.
You too.
Thank
Thank
as well.
you.
You're welcome.
Mark, I'm gonna come back to you. Are you there, Mark? Are you there? If not, that's okay. So
Oh, I'm here. Like I said, I'm
you
trying to get ready for
okay.
this meeting that I've got and everything along those lines. But I have thoroughly enjoyed learning from Alicia, learning from Felipe, and of course, always getting great insight from Toya and you, Dr. Diamond. And looking forward to our next show. Hopefully, we'll see Alicia back again. But definitely go out there and do something positive in your life in order to make not just your life, but everybody's life better. I'm one of those people that believes that we can all do our part to better this world. I don't know if you know this, but on my own show that I air on Pod TV, which is the network that I am part of and everything, and we re-air your show on that as well and everything, is I always get people to give a message of positivity at the end, because I believe in the positive thought and the positive thought movement. And if we all create positive thoughts, all of this negative drama that we're going through, and that's the only way I can describe it, is drama, and all along those lines, we can do our part to get rid of that drama and make this world a better place. There's that old notion, one person at a time, one victory at a time, and I'm a definite believer in that and all along those lines. So whether you are fighting illness, whether you are fighting abusive situations, whether you are fighting just in terms of day-to-day survival and the job force and all along those lines, I do believe that one victory at a time, we can achieve what we need to achieve. And I have no doubt in my mind that Miss Alicia is going to be a tremendous success. She already is, and she's going to be an even greater success as she goes on and all along those lines. So I'm actually getting ready to go meet a young lady that's of Indian descent, as in from India, that had a band called Project Mastana, and that band had some success sometime back, but then they went on hiatus. She was doing some travel and doing some work in her regular work and everything, but now she's ready to get back in the music circuit and all along those lines. So I'm looking forward to hearing what she's got going on and to hear how I can help in that situation. And the same would go for you, Alicia, as well. Anything I can do, whether it's getting you a gig here in North Carolina or finding some opportunities, because I do have some friends that are filmmakers and all along those lines, do know that you're part of what I consider a greater family.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, that is awesome. So I am going to state my parting words. So you all, thank you so much. Just wait in the wings and I'll be talking to you shortly. All right, well, we had a wonderful show this morning to this afternoon. Alicia came on again, our author, actress, model, poet, and most importantly, a mother. She was able to share with us her story, how she got to where she was, the experience that she had with loss, what she did with that loss, and how she became a powerhouse right now in the present. So a couple of things that I want you all to walk away with is this: stand in your power. Figure out what your power is. And once you figure out that power, just stand in it. Use it as your motivational source. Use it as your foundation. It is important to see it as a foundation. Our voice is our power. Our knowledge is our power. No one can take your knowledge away from you. You're the only person that is able to spew out of your mouth what the knowledge you have right here in this brain of yours. No question is dumb. No feeling or talking about it is dumb. Don't ever feel like you can't say the things that you need to say. You have been encouraged today by all of us to speak up, talk about your experiences. As Blue said too, if you journal, you don't have to journal a whole page. Journal a word, journal 2 words, whatever you need to do to purge something off of you. But remember to stand into your power, because that is what's going to move you towards your healing. So remember those things. Also, to get the book Uninterrupted, you will find it on Amazon. You'll also find it on the couch page, where you will find the link there. Once you click the link, it will take you to her book. Also, it's okay not to be okay.
That book will also be linked onto our On the Couch page, which was written by Felipe Blue as well. And he also talked about his journal today. That link will also be there as well, the Wellness Journal. That is also on Amazon. That will be advertised as well. So remember, when you sit on the couch with us, we are hoping that you're walking away with knowledge, and you use that to move you towards whatever you're seeking in your life. No one is perfect. A lot of the times we're all broken because we are sinners. So remember that. No one is perfect. Just keep walking towards your healing. And if it takes you one day at a time, that's what it should be doing. If it's only one little step at a time, where you're just only taking tiny steps, it is okay to do that. But just remember, your healing is wherever you see it. It is no one here to tell you where it's going to be. Even a therapist can't tell you where your healing is going to be. It's you going towards it. So as always, thank you so much for joining us here on the couch. Remember, love, peace, love, and tranquility. Remember those three. That's our motto here on the couch. And we thank you so much again for joining us. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Until 2 weeks, we'll see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of On the Couch. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation and found it as enlightening and inspiring as I did. Remember, the stories and experiences we share here are just the beginning of a much larger journey. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, look for the notification on Facebook, and find us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us keep the conversation going and reach more listeners just like you. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep the dialogue alive. Peace, love, and tranquility. Take care, and we'll see you on the couch.